And welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, everybody, for another Tuesday night live stream. The second set of college football playoff rankings set to be released in probably under 10 minutes. We are just a few minutes away from the new release of the college football playoff rankings. And the million-dollar question, of course, is will we see any major changes? We saw a handful of teams go down last week in college football. It was a very exciting weekend of college football. But was it enough to change some of the top teams in the country? Was it enough for the committee to change the top four? And we'll bring those previous top four teams up here shortly. But again, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you guys could join us today for this live reaction to the college football playoff rankings. We're going to watch the rankings live with you, give you our instant analysis, our instant reactions, and then we're going to open up our phone lines to discuss it with you guys. So we're going to answer your questions in the chat. We're going to take your calls. Who knows how long we'll be here. We have no time limit. We're excited for what is to come tonight. Hopefully, the rankings is going to be better than they were last week. I think a lot of us were kind of disgusted with what we saw from the committee. We had a lot of disagreement with the committee. What else is new here at the channel? We very rarely have we been in agreement with the college football playoff committee. So hopefully we will get something better, or at least just better, reasoning from the committee when they announce their teams. Just a reminder, these are the top four teams as they stand now. Ohio State at 1, Georgia 2, Michigan 3, and Florida State 4. Those were the top four teams last week. It should be noted that the top 8 teams in college football, based on these rankings, didn't lose last week. And that's the question that we're having to wonder going into this tonight, right? Is top 8 teams all win. So in theory, we would have the same top 8 teams all with the same order, right? I would say not necessarily. Did Georgia's victory over a top 12 team in Missouri, is that enough to put Georgia back in the number 1 spot ahead of Ohio State, who, yes, did beat Rutgers, but if you ask me personally, was outplayed by Rutgers. So that's something to kind of watch your mind out there. Michigan's number 3 based on the playoff committee. Obviously, they're in the midst of this giant sign stealing scandal. That should not affect them at all whatsoever. Until punishment is pushed down, I really don't want to hear anybody saying Michigan shouldn't be ranked that high. Michigan shouldn't. There's nothing to discuss there, right? Whether you think Michigan did it, whether you think they didn't do it, whether you think they should be punished, shouldn't be punished, whatever, they're not going to get punished by the committee. At least they shouldn't be. Any punishment passed down from the NCAA to Michigan will not even happen until after the season. They would not risk ruining the game here in 2 weeks between Michigan and Ohio State, taking away meaning from that. They would not even come close to doing something to any team like that is in national title contention this close to the end of the year. So Michigan probably not going to see a major change there. Florida State didn't look all that great on the road against Pittsburgh, managed a 17-point victory. But one could argue that Washington's road win by 10 over a top 25 team in USC was better than that, and maybe the Huskies can get propelled into the top 4. So there are obviously a lot of scenarios here in a lot of discussion where you could make arguments and say the top 4 should change slightly, should be tweaked, right? Alabama's win over LSU by 14 points. I don't see them jumping Texas at all. They shouldn't jump Texas because Texas owns the head-to-head. But would the committee say, hey, 14-point win over a top 15 LSU team to us was more impressive than a Texas win over Kansas State, a low-ranked Kansas State team that Texas only won in overtime. They probably should have lost that game in the final second. So something to watch out for as we enter the rankings. The show is beginning right now. Again, we can't air the show on our channel because copyright, ESPN would destroy us and kill us. But you're going to get our live reaction, watching it in real time with you, and then we'll get going from there. Just as another reminder, that is the playoff committee's top 4. This is our top 4, the GE top 4, based on our GE top 25 that we release every single Monday. Don't miss out on those videos. It gives some great analysis and insight into our rankings. We explain, look, I'm not saying our rankings are perfect, right? Our rankings are far from perfect. You probably don't always agree with everything we put in our rankings. But the one thing we do is we give you deep analysis and reasoning on our rankings, something the committee does not do, something the AP does not do. We explain why we rank the teams where they are, unlike any other poll in the country. Michigan at 1 for us. They've been the most dominant and most efficient team all year long, despite the weak strength of schedule. To me, that does not play a role. They have an opportunity to bolster that with games against Penn State and Ohio State in the next 3 weeks. Penn State this Saturday, Ohio State in 2 weeks. Georgia right behind them at 2. Two-time reigning national champion, have been very dominant all year long, playing great ball. Got a huge win, as we mentioned, over number 12, Missouri. Florida State at 3, and Washington cracked our top 4. Washington did crack our top 4, replacing Ohio State. We have Ohio State all the way down at 6. We do not have the Buckeyes as high as maybe many others do. I have not been that impressed with Ohio State. I mean, look at their schedule again. They've got the road win against Notre Dame. Great. That Notre Dame victory doesn't look nearly as good as it did 2 months ago. Notre Dame now a 3-loss team. They've got the win over Penn State, who, great, right after that, barely survived Indiana. Penn State beats Michigan this Saturday. Things change, right? That win looks a lot better. But Penn State, another team that in their only big game of the year, laid an egg against the Buckeyes. So, and then you look at this last weekend too. Ohio State simply was outplayed against Rutgers. And you would say, how are they outplayed when they won by 19 points? Rutgers settling for 3 field goals in the second quarter, all within the 5-yard line. If those are touchdowns, the Scarlet Knights win the game. I know shoulda, woulda, coulda. I know it doesn't matter, but any other team would have punched that ball in the end zone. They would have gotten that ball in the end zone, and Ohio State would have lost. So I'm not entirely impressed with the Buckeyes coming down at number 6. That'll be interesting to see if they remain at number 1, as the committee had them last weekend. So a lot of major storylines coming up. Again, the rankings just coming out minutes away from seeing the new top 25. Our initial reactions right here on the channel. As always, make sure to like, to comment, subscribe. Every single one of you watching now or watching later, subscribe to the channel. Check us out. Like the stream. Helps our analytics big time. Help us out. Help our channel grow. Help our GE Nation grow. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification button so you don't miss out on any future videos and any future content that we have. We have predictions coming out starting tomorrow for the top 25 games. We're going to do these live streams every Tuesday, breaking down the rankings with you. Got a lot of stuff coming your way over the course of the next few weeks as the season slowly comes to a close. Also, make sure to sign up for our expert picks, guys. We're on a 62-29 run against the spread. You're not going to find that anywhere else. The link for those expert picks is in the description below over on the gridironexpert.com. Go sign up for those expert picks today. Again, no other handicapper, no other business in the country is producing a mark like that. 62-29 run against the spread. It's over 68%. No one else is doing that. No one else is offering it at the low price that we're offering. And no one's going to give you the best customer service like we do. Guaranteed email responses within the day, guaranteed winnings, guaranteed responses, guaranteed no issues. The Gridiron Guarantee. Go sign up. 7 expert pick subscriptions away. Just 7 from doing a 24-hour live stream right here on the channel with you guys. 7 away. 7 away. So go sign up for those expert picks. Cannot stress that enough. If you want to win, this is the place for you. If you want to keep losing or keep having mediocre winnings, do whatever you want to do. But we can guarantee you'll win big with us right here. All right. Again, just seconds away now from the second set of rankings. Can feel it coming on. We got it pulled over on the big TV over here. We got Maction over here on the iPad. It's a great night. Great night of college football. Again, you can't beat it. Cannot beat it. Carter Galbraith Media, good to see you. Robert, Jerry Turner, Stephen Cuffey, my man Gideon, good to have you here. And we'll get to everybody else here shortly as the rankings are underway. And my initial reaction is shocked to see Iowa and North Carolina back in the top 25. What did North Carolina, no offense to you Carolina fans, what did North Carolina do to justify being back inside the top 25? They beat a Campbell team this last weekend, if I'm not mistaken. 2 really, really bad losses to Virginia and Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken there. Not good to see the Tar Heels there. Doesn't make any sense, although maybe they're looking to bolster some other ACC team strength of schedule. Iowa in the top 25 is intriguing too. Look, 7-2 is a good enough record to have them in there. I know their style of play is boring. That's no reason to keep them out of the top 25, but not a fan of seeing Iowa there. Haven't really beaten anybody worthwhile or noteworthy. I don't understand what Iowa's doing at 22nd. Arizona, though, I do agree with. They've won 3 straight games over ranked opponents. They beat Washington State. They beat UCLA. They beat Oregon State. They've been playing really, really good ball right now. Jed Fish has something going down in Tucson, so I'm a fan of that. Notre Dame at 20th is interesting to me. I've actually got Arizona ranked 1 spot ahead of Notre Dame, so I would definitely flip those. If you're going to have them both ranked, I would flip Arizona over Notre Dame, who has Notre Dame beat? Notre Dame really hasn't beaten anybody good other than USC, and they aren't even that good. They're terrible. So not a fan of Notre Dame being as high as they are. Interesting that they dropped LSU and Notre Dame the same amount of spots. A committee should have maybe taken into account the loss of Jaden Daniels to LSU, but I'm not sure there. Utah not rising at all, despite being Arizona State. Interesting, Oklahoma down 8 and Kansas up 5 into the top 16, but not enough to be into the top 15, which is intriguing there. They're honoring the head-to-head. They're honoring Kansas, who beat Oklahoma, putting them ahead of the Sooners, who dropped 8 spots out of the top 10 to 17th. Obviously, their playoff hopes are done. All right. Oklahoma State, I think, is a little low. I think if you're the committee and you're going to rank them in the low area of the top 25 last week and only send them a few spots above Oklahoma and Kansas, who they did beat, I feel like Oklahoma State should be a little bit higher. I think put them above Missouri, maybe even above Tennessee for that matter. They've got a heck of a win over the Cowboys. They've beat Kansas. They beat Kansas State. I mean, I'm not sure what else the committee's wanting. I know that South Alabama loss was bad, but not sure on that. Missouri only dropping 2. Again, it might put the Cowboys ahead of them, but I'm not mad that Missouri dropped only 2 spots. They put up a good fight on the road at Georgia. And then Louisville, Oregon State, Tennessee, rounding that out. Tennessee remaining that high, obviously going to benefit Georgia possibly, depending on if the Volunteers can beat Missouri this Saturday. So that's an intriguing 13-14 matchup there. Oregon State, same thing can be said for their games coming up against Oregon and Washington. Both could benefit the Ducks and the Huskies and their playoff hopes. But the Beavers, solid win there. And then Louisville, outside the top 10, right at 11. I think I'm okay with that because I would have put Penn State ahead of them too. Obviously, Penn State has a better loss, and there is such a thing as a better loss, right? Penn State's one loss to Ohio State. Louisville's one loss to Pittsburgh. Cardinals are playing great ball. You win in dominating fashion against Virginia this weekend. They probably get themselves into the top 10. So I'm not that upset there. I assume next after Penn State in the top 10, it'll probably be Ole Miss. Wouldn't expect Ole Miss to skyrocket too high. Keep in mind that's going to mean we have a top 10 showdown between Ole Miss and Georgia. We're actually going to have 2 top 10 showdowns this Saturday with Penn State and Michigan and Georgia and Ole Miss. So a massive, massive day of college football on Saturday. Remember, our predictions on those games coming your way starting tomorrow. Tomorrow, right here on the channel. But again, so Ole Miss at 9. I would expect that. And again, I think it's going to kind of be chronologically here. The team that's at 8th, I mean, you would imagine you can make the argument that the top 8 doesn't change. Ole Miss gets up to number 9, good for them. You would make the case 8th could be Alabama, 7th could be Texas. I mean, if the committee is going to pride themselves on honoring the head-to-head results, then that is what it should be. Even though arguably Alabama had a better win per se, both teams got top 25 wins on their home turf. Neither of them went on the road to beat somebody. Texas over Kansas State, Alabama over LSU. So yeah, Alabama at 8, no change there. I would imagine Texas would be at 7, no change there. And there's a good chance that the top 8 does remain the same with no changes at all. And I'm not sure if I would be too angry by that. Again, I think our stream cut out on it. Yeah, stream cut out on us for a second. I think it would. I don't think I'd be too upset with that, with the top 4 staying the same. But it would be interesting to see what they decide to do. I think you can make the argument that you could see some changes within the top 4. Washington slipping in there could make a change at number 1. Not entirely sure. I see some of your comments there already. Glassman saying that Ole Miss has been overrated. And actually, I tell you what, the 2 teams towards the bottom of the top 10, Penn State and Ole Miss, it's put up and shut up time for them, right? It's put up or shut up time for both those teams. You've got these 2 teams that have been, the last couple of years, been in playoff contention late into the year. Ole Miss got off to their strong start last year. Penn State's been so good. And now they both have massive, massive games to shake up the college football world and prove they're true contenders. If Ole Miss can beat Georgia and Penn State can beat Michigan, it completely derails the top 4 of the playoff rankings. It completely shows that that Penn State and Ole Miss are absolutely playing. And that's actually another thing to watch out for, too. You want to talk about chaos for a second. If Ole Miss finds a way to beat Georgia on Saturday, which would be the biggest win under Lane Kiffin since he arrived in Oxford, you would have an Ole Miss team that very well could finish the year at 11-1, but not even play for the SEC championship because they'd lose out on that tiebreaker to Alabama. And that's where things would get interesting too, right? They beat Georgia. Georgia beats Tennessee. Georgia and Alabama in the SEC championship. Winner goes to the playoff. Loser doesn't. Could you see Ole Miss have a case to get into the playoff at 11-1, having not played for the conference championship? That is a feasible thing. We've seen that happen before, right? We've seen Ohio State do that before. We've seen Alabama do that before. Not play in the Big Ten or SEC championship and still get into the playoff. That's not entirely far-fetched for Ole Miss if they can beat Georgia. That's going to be a lot more difficult, I think, going on the road to Athens to win that game than it would be for Penn State to beat Michigan in Happy Valley. I think Penn State matches up very well with Michigan. Again, our prediction for that game coming out tomorrow, right here on the channel. So really exciting stuff there. But again, if Penn State beats Michigan, you could see yourself with a three-way tie in the Big Ten East, and that creates chaos. So this next weekend is going to tell us a lot about the rest of the year. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see any changes here. Oregon comes in at number 6. I don't think, even though Washington got a much better win than Florida State, winning by 10 at USC, I don't think they're going to do it, and they don't. Oregon 6, Washington 5th. And I think the top 4, based on what we've seen, I'm not saying I agree with it, based on how the rankings have played out tonight, it looks like the top 4 will remain the same, with Florida State at 4, Michigan at 3, Georgia at 2, and Ohio State at 1. And honestly, the only justifiable change would be giving Georgia the edge over Ohio State for that top spot. And I don't think the committee is going to do that. I just don't. That's the only justifiable change. Florida State's not going to be ahead of Michigan. Yeah, I think the top 4 remains the same here, which is fine because here's the thing, right? We talk about this every week when we do the show. The committee, yeah, okay. Panic for a second. Florida State at 4, right? It's all going to work out, right? Like, it's all going to get played out. Oregon and Washington seem to be on a crash course to play each other again in the Pac-12 championship game, whether the Huskies are undefeated. Maybe they slip up this week to Utah. Maybe they slip up next week to Oregon State. We don't know. But either way, I do think that the Washington-Oregon Pac-12 championship game, if we get that, and both teams are either one loss or Washington's undefeated and Oregon's one loss, that is a playoff play-in game, right? That is a play-in game between Washington and Oregon. So that'll work itself out. Michigan's still got to play Penn State and Ohio State, like we mentioned. That's going to take a lot of shape, right, for all of those programs and for the Big Ten and their playoff hopes. Florida State, honestly, has the easiest path to the playoff, I would say. Seminoles don't really have a tough slate the rest of the year. Their ACC championship opponent would more than likely be Louisville at this rate. And the Cardinals are not bad by any means, but I don't think they're maybe as good. I mean, I have them ranked high, right? I'm not going to dog on them. I'm not going to dog on Louisville. But Florida State's got probably the most favorable schedule from here on out of any team. If you just win, you're in. And there you go. Georgia at 2, Ohio State at 1. So clearly Georgia's win over Missouri, not enough. You wonder what would have happened had Georgia blown out Missouri, right? If they had won that game like 45-7, would that have been enough to put Georgia over the Buckeyes? That's something that I think is interesting there. Margin of victory, I do think, plays a role when it comes to these playoff rankings. But there you have it, guys. Your updated playoff rankings. Not a whole lot of changes. Not a whole lot of changes. The top 8 teams remain the same. And that was the thing we were asking before the stream. Would that truly be the case? It was. Despite some of the teams getting better wins than others, it was not enough to shake anything up in the top 8. Ole Miss up to number 9. So you will have number 2 Georgia and number 9 Ole Miss on Saturday night. You will also have number 3 Michigan traveling to number 10 Penn State on Saturday morning, that 11 a.m. big noon kickoff, which is a sin. It's that early, but so it goes. So that's two major top 10 showdowns. You have number 13 and number 14 playing with Tennessee and Missouri. And then you have number 5 and number 18 playing with Washington and Utah. So 4 huge ranked versus ranked matchups this Saturday. Again, we have predictions for those games coming out here on the channel starting tomorrow. What I think we all need to sit down and understand is that this Saturday, is going to majorly shape out the college football playoff rankings and who goes into the Final Four. And I think it's also going to create a lot of questions that we hope to get answered by the committee next Tuesday night. Because it's one of those things where, if Michigan annihilates Penn State, I'm just hypothetical. Let's say that happens. And Georgia barely survives Ole Miss. Does Michigan get to jump Georgia? Does Michigan get to go all the way to number 1? Could you make that argument? If Washington absolutely destroys a top 20 Utah team, could they jump Florida State, who's playing a mediocre Miami team at 6-3? Could that happen? So again, what I want to know is next weekend, after all these top 25 showdowns have played out, if we see either one of those top teams have a blowout victory or even just one of those top teams get a much more quality victory than maybe a team that's directly ahead of them, would the committee justify jumping them? Even, especially if there's no head-to-head conflict there, right? Like, Alabama annihilates Kentucky. Texas barely survives TCU. I don't think Bama should jump Texas, right? Texas still beat Bama head-to-head. I'm not justifying that. But teams that have not played each other, could you see that happen? Just want to go through it from top to bottom again real quick, and then we'll open the phone lines and we'll answer your questions in the chat. Again, thank you all for being here tonight. We're pumped to have you on this Tuesday night live stream. The second set of playoff rankings already been released. And same thing, same storyline, right? Breaking news. Is it really breaking news if it's the same old stuff? Ohio State is number 1 in the college football playoff poll. And once again, it remains unchanged. 1 through 4 have not changed on the committee. Going from the bottom up, I think we all, and I think I saw a lot of you guys in the comments shouting this, I think we're all upset with the first 5, right? Iowa being at 22nd is shocking. I know their record is good. Was it 7-2? Who has Iowa beat? Who have they beat? They beat Northwestern last week, barely. They beat Wisconsin on the road, okay? A couple cupcake teams early in the year, okay? Who has Iowa beat that's extremely noteworthy enough to put them into the top 25? I think I disagree with that. That's something that I think is interesting, seeing how that could maybe benefit the Big Ten in the long run. Obviously, it makes Penn State's shutout victory over them look a little bit better. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with North Carolina being ranked, unfortunately. I really don't. Again, who has North Carolina really beat that's super noteworthy and worthy of being put into the top 25? Seriously, South Carolina, not good. Minnesota, not good. Miami, not good. They haven't played Clemson yet, who's mediocre too, 5-4. They haven't played Florida State. They're not going to play Florida State. They've lost to the worst team in the conference in Virginia. They lost to another bad team in Georgia Tech, who I know is fighting for a bowl berth this Saturday against Clemson. I'm aware of that, but still not all that great. So I'm not sure how North Carolina goes from unranked, beats a crappy FCS school this last week, and then goes back into the top 25 with 2, not 1, but 2 really bad losses. Not a fan of that. I'm okay with Kansas State staying in there. I really am. Kansas State was so close to beating Texas last week. Kansas State's a very, very good team. Out of Big 12 title contention, sure, but they're still a very good team, worthy of being ranked. I'm not upset with that. I would swap Arizona and Notre Dame. Both teams have 3 losses. Who's been playing better football right now? Arizona has, no doubt about it. Arizona has been playing much better ball than Notre Dame. 3 straight ranked wins. Notre Dame's best win is who? Who's Notre Dame's best victory? Seriously. USC, who's not even ranked, who also has 3 losses. They couldn't beat Ohio State. They got blown out by Louisville. They barely beat Duke. And then they lost to Clemson. At 4-4 Clemson at that, where Notre Dame was actually favored on the road and still lost. So I would definitely swap Arizona there and put them into the top 20. I wouldn't put them in the top 20. We have Arizona. Oklahoma State does own the advantage over Kansas. They beat the Jayhawks about a month ago. So they're going to own that edge over the Jayhawks when it comes to the standings. But if the Cowboys were to get upset on the road this weekend against UCF, maybe lose somewhere else, Kansas has that spot. So Oklahoma State and Kansas are still very much in contention for a Big 12 championship. Oklahoma, not so much, considering they don't have the tiebreaker over Kansas or the Cowboys. Winner, how that shapes out could actually really benefit Texas here. It really could. Texas is 7th. And there's a lot of talk of like, all right, if Texas is a one-loss conference champion, could they get in? It depends on what happens in the Pac-12. If they get another top 10 victory over Oklahoma State or Kansas in the Big 12 championship, or even the top 15 even, that would go a long way, I think, that extra resume-boosting win for Texas. So if you're a Longhorns fan, keep that in mind as you progress through the season. Obviously, you've got to keep winning to keep your playoff hopes alive, but you're going to be hoping Oklahoma State or Kansas continues to win too to set up the highest ranked team possible in the Big 12 championship. Right now, it would be the Cowboys if the season were to end today, and to set you up with another potential chance to get another big resume boosting win there. So something to keep your eye on there. Tennessee and Missouri, they're just battling for second place in the East this Saturday. It's really about all they've got going for them. And then we've already kind of dissected the top 10 like we have for the last few minutes, which, again, I don't have too many issues with entirely. Again, they're not my top 4. They're not the GE top 4. This is our top 4 as we put out on Monday, well before the playoff committee. They don't sway us. I wouldn't want them to sway us. I think they're incompetent. So we've got, again, Michigan, Georgia, Florida State, and Washington in our top 4 right now. Bottom line, again, guys, we have so much ball left to be played, so many big-time games left to be played that these rankings are going to see significant shakeups. The only thing we've got to hope for as fans is that we will get a fair assessment of these rankings and that the committee will stay relevant and stay consistent, right? Let's not have it this week and then next week you change your criteria. Or next week you go, yeah, this week we value margin of victory. This week we don't. You can't switch up your rules, right? You can't switch up how you handle things. You've got to be consistent. And you can't say, well, we tried out this criteria in the first weekend, then we changed our criteria right before selection. It's like, no. You have to be consistent all the way through. And us as fans, we're going to remember that, right? We will know that. We'll recognize that. So definitely a lot to digest there. A lot of stuff to break down there. Anxious to get a lot of y'all's thoughts as we go through, and we're going to do that here in 1 second. We really are. I just want to make sure I get to say hi to everybody first. So we didn't get to right before we got cut off. So Gideon, good to see you, my guy. Happy to have you here. Stephen Cuffey, good to have you here. Stephen, go check out those expert picks, my guy. You were with us last year. We'd love to get you to sign up with us again this year. Get us one step closer to our goal of that 24-hour live stream. So we'd love to have you on our team, Steve, but we appreciate you being here and all your support. C. Glassman, good to see you. Scotty B. Todd, was that Sathoff or Satoff? Sorry, I can't remember pronounce it, but good to see you, Todd. Robert, good to see you. White Boy Magic, 850 Matthew. Gideon, I respect it. He's a North Carolina fan. He's like, we shouldn't even be ranked, so I respect the heck out of that. Clement, good to see you. Ryan Dobis, good to see you. Eugene Morris, Frankie Russell, and everybody else who might be here. Let's see. CSR, D1 Rays. Mitch, my man Mitch, good to have you on here. How's Oregon State and Tennessee over Kansas and Oklahoma State? I think the Tennessee one is a little bit more confusing than Oregon State. I can justify Oregon State a little bit more. Not a whole lot, but a little bit more. Tennessee, I've thought about that a lot, actually. Who has Tennessee beat? Worthwhile, right? Who has Tennessee beat? You know, they've got a blowout loss to Florida. They've got a blowout loss to Alabama. And they go, it's not a blowout. It was a blowout, right? Where'd they get shut out? 27-0. It was a double-digit loss. A double-digit loss to Alabama after getting shut out like 27-0 in the second half. They didn't show up in the second half. So remember, the game's 60 minutes, not 30. So again, who's Tennessee's best win on their schedule right now? A&M? Would it be Texas A&M? Who's what, like 5-4? Like, that's a pretty, I agree with you. That's a pretty high ranking for the Volunteers there. They beat Virginia early on. Haven't played Georgia yet. Playing Missouri this weekend. South Carolina, not a big win. Vandy later on in the year. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. Kentucky, the best win. Kentucky or A&M. And who was their cross division? Who were their cross division? Bama and who was the other one? Totally blanking on that. Somebody, A&M, duh, just said it. Yeah, Bama and A&M. So, yeah, Tennessee does not really have a great schedule and a strength of schedule to go with it. They're 13th in the country right now. That'll get worked out this week, right? I mean, they can prove that they are worthy of a high ranking if they can beat a number 14 Missouri team on the road. Or if they lose that game and go to 7-3, then I think they should plummet towards the lower end of the teams, maybe even outside the top 20, depending on what the final score is. But I agree. I think the committee is wrongly punishing Oklahoma State for that bad loss to South Alabama. And it was, right? You cannot lose on your home turf by 26 points to a team out of the Sun Belt. You just can't. You just can't. That's a bad, bad, bad loss. But if we punished every team for a bad performance or a bad loss that happened early in the year, back in September, then I think we would be doing every team in these entire rankings a major disservice, right? Oklahoma State is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. Big win over Kansas State. Big win over Kansas. Big win over Oklahoma. They are winning at an alarming rate. They're winning big time, winning convincingly, we should say, in a handful of these games. So, yeah, Oregon State, they've got a little bit better of a resume. But even then so, I mean, not all that great. The Utah win is holding a lot of weight for them. But the Beavers, again, I think this is an opportunity, and we've seen this happen, where the committee ranks some of these teams high in hopes they'll continue to win. And so they keep winning. They can't be that. We got to drop them. They're going to keep them at the same spot or maybe fluctuate a little bit, and that benefits the top teams, the higher teams, later on, right? Tennessee will benefit Georgia down the road if Tennessee does beat Missouri. And if they don't, it's still going to be a top 20 win or a top 20 game on the resume for Georgia. Either way, Georgia's in a win-win. Missouri beats Tennessee. Hey, we beat Missouri. Tennessee beats Missouri. Hey, we got to play Tennessee in Knoxville. If we win that, it makes us look even better. So that helps Georgia look good. Oregon State being as high as they are, if they continue to win, they've got Washington next weekend and then Oregon right after. That's an opportunity for both of those teams to get a top 15 victory. Because Oregon State's not going to lose. I think what are they playing? Stanford this weekend? They're not losing that game. I wouldn't think. So that's an opportunity for Washington to bolster their resume and possibly get a top 15, maybe top 10, depending on the chaos that happens this weekend, win over Oregon State. And then on the flip side, Oregon State, let's say they lose to Washington, will not plummet down the rankings, would probably remain in the top 15 or the top 20. That gives Oregon that chance to get something. You got to think long term, right? When you're dealing with the playoff committee, you've got to think long term. We're not just looking at these rankings now. We're looking at the future. It's a matter of, okay, we know we've got games to play this weekend. We know those teams are going to win. There's other teams that are going to lose. We're going to see some shakeups, of course. But what does this do for my team? What does this do for one of those elite teams going forward later on this season? And if you're Texas, if you're Oregon or Washington, if you're Georgia, you've got a lot of teams in the top 15 that are going to really, really benefit you down the road if you keep winning. That is something to keep your eye on. It's not just the now, it's the future. It's the next 2 weeks leading into conference championship weekend that's going to play a major role for some of these teams when we start talking about resumes and all that BS. So that's what's coming your way here soon. Not saying I'm a fan of it, not saying I agree with it, but that's exactly what's happening with these rankings. All right. Let me switch this to another action game on my iPad here. I got Central Michigan and Western Michigan on the big screen. Gotta love it, man. Middle of November, and we're getting to watch on a Tuesday night. We're getting to watch some football. I'm not gonna complain about that. All right, let's see. All right, so let's get to it. Let's take y'all's calls tonight. And again, you know how it goes. We're going to take your calls talking about the rankings, talking about what's happening this week. We don't have to stick solely with the playoff ranking. We don't have to do that. But obviously, that's a major point of this live stream tonight. As always, we're going to take your calls. We're going to try to limit them to roughly 5 minutes or so we can get to as many callers tonight as possible. So let's get to it. Give us a call at this number, 870-586-6624. That is the number to call tonight. We will continue to take your questions and comments and concerns and advice and everything else in the chat throughout the night. But we are anxious to hear y'all's thoughts as we go through tonight's rankings. A very interesting set of rankings at that. College football guy, good to see you. Happy to have you here. Righteous Pimp, good to see you. What a name. What a name. Matthew Pate, perhaps related to the great Josh Pate. Who knows? Good to see you, Matthew. And Mitch says, I see. I'm curious to see what y'all are getting at. You and Scotty are getting into something. Let's see here. I know, Scotty, you're frustrated with Baylor. Oh, wow. If Baylor moves on from Aranda next week, yeah, I'm going to be with Mitch on that. I don't think that Aranda should get fired. I think the fall of Baylor over the last couple of years has been very interesting. It really has. A couple of years removed from a Big 12 title, right? And a Sugar Bowl win as well. And last year went like 6-7, 7-6, something like that. And then this year, probably not even going to make a bowl game. It's like, what happened to Baylor, right? I think it was a lot of things. I think I'm gonna put this out there too. I'm not blaming this reason on Baylor struggles or any team struggles or anything like that, or success for that matter. But something to keep in mind is the fact that we are in a really weird state of college football right now. We are still in an era where teams are benefiting from COVID players, right? Like when COVID came around and we had these extra COVID years and the eligibility things get all screwed up, like that gave a lot of players a lot more eligibility, where you're seeing guys staying in college for 6, 7, maybe 8 years because you got, I'm in college, a couple of years, COVID. So I got my COVID year plus my redshirt year. And then, oh no, I got hurt. Now I get the medical redshirt. And like guys can stick around a lot longer and have been able to stick around a lot longer due to COVID, due to, some of these changes in rules. And so I think to some extent that has benefited. Last year was probably the biggest year for that, getting to see the super seniors, as they call them. I would say that was the biggest year and biggest example of that, but it's still resonating a little bit now, and maybe will trickle into a little bit next year. And then it's the transfer portal as well. I'm telling you right now, if you want to win in this age in college football, you have to transfer. You've got to utilize the transfer portal, man. That's part of the reason I think that Dabo Swinney has struggled. That's part of a major reason why Dabo Swinney has struggled the last couple of years at Clemson. I think he's a heck of a coach, but if you, in any profession, right, any profession that you're in, if you fail to adapt with the times, if you fail to change, I guess change is scary, but change is good, right? And if you are so stuck in your way and so stubborn, you might not ever get anywhere. You really might. So that's how you have to win. And Aranda hasn't utilized it as well as we have wanted to see, right, Scotty? I mean, I think you know that. It's a bad time. You say a lot of the stadium seats are empty. Of course, who's going to want to show up to support a losing team, right? Nobody is. And that does resonate with athletic directors. You got to keep in mind, how much longer do I keep a coach around or keep these guys around if I'm not making money? Because bottom line is, college football is a business, and it's all about money. You can love this player, love this coach, support this, support that. Bottom line is no one cares. As long as it's money, as long as money's trickling into the university, as long as money's trickling in from the NCAA, ratings, merchandise, tickets, everything like that, that's all that matters. I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that's what it should all be about. But unfortunately, that's the way that we've been transitioning, the direction we've been transitioning. So something to watch out for there. College football guy, do I think Michigan will be punished by the Big Ten within the next 48 hours? And again, I'm gonna pull people's questions up and pop them up here. The call-in number is on the little ESPN ticker right below there. It's trickling through. So if you don't remember the number, it's going to be ticking across all stream long. Do I think Michigan will get punished by the Big Ten within the next 48 hours? No. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if Michigan got punished by the Big Ten, especially within the next 48 hours. I think a punishment's coming, right? And here's the thing with the whole Michigan thing, right? Like it's so complicated. It's so complicated because I don't condone the fact that they cheated, right? I will not condone cheating. I definitely won't do that. But I'm trying to respond to a caller here. We missed him. I certainly don't condone cheating. Everybody sign steals them. Okay. Whether you want to sit there and agree with me or disagree with me or whatever, everybody steals signs. Everybody does. Michigan got caught. And Michigan, to the extent that Michigan did it, was probably more so than other teams, right? Like putting Stallions or whoever on the sideline with the camera and the glasses and things like that. I mean, this is like extra level Spygate, if you're familiar with NFL. I mean, it's similar to that. It really is. But do I think that it gave Michigan the upper hand in every game they played? No. Do I think that it's the reason they blew out certain opponents? No. I genuinely don't. And I think it was Deion Sanders that said it best, right? Like, you can know exactly what's coming at you. You still got to stop it, right? Like, you still got to, like, if you know, hey, they're running a slant, you still got to stop the slant. Still got to make the tackle. Still got to make the play. Still got, again, not condoning it, but like, just because you know what plays are being run all the time doesn't mean that you can actually go out there and make that play and make that stop. Do what you got to do. Do I think they'll be punished? No. And here's why. Bottom line is, Michigan is a legitimate national title contender, right? Like, that is, that's the case. They're a true national title contender. If they put a punishment down now and said, "Hey, Michigan, you can't go to the college football playoff. Hey, Michigan, if you win a national title, good for you. We're taking it away from you as soon as you win it. Hey, Michigan, this, that, and the other." It puts a damper on everything, right? Like the game, Michigan, Ohio State, 2 weeks from now, that takes a major blow, like a major blow. What's the meaning there? If we know Michigan can't play for a Big Ten title, if we know they can't make the college playoff, then what's the point? And conversely, what's the point of playing that game? How the heck does it benefit? How does it benefit Ohio State even? So I don't really envision a world where a punishment is enforced until after the season. And I'll touch more on that in a second. We're actually getting a caller right now, so let's get him on. Let's bring him on speaker. All right, you are on the Gridiron Expert. Who's with us?
This is Carter, a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Well, that is what we like to hear, Carter. Good. Thanks for being here, man.
Of course. I just want to, first of all, say huge fan of your show. Applaud your work. Think you're one of the best analysts in the country, and deserve a whole lot more recognition than you get, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I do. That's maybe one day, man. We're building. We're building a nation. We're building a GE nation, and hopefully we can get there in time. That's the goal, right?
Absolutely, man. So along the lines of Michigan, I was listening to this. I don't know where you ended before I got on here. Were you saying how they're probably not going to get punished and stuff? I agree. And while it is because they're national title contender, it's also because Michigan is one of those teams that is going to bring in the most money. When you got a team like Bama, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, those big name schools doing that, as wrong as it is and as horrible as it is, whether, like you said with Deion, you can stop it. You got to stop it even though you know it's coming. With a smaller school doing that, like, I'm from Arkansas, and like I go to Arkansas right now. If Arkansas was to do that, we would get reprimanded immediately, 10-year bowl ban, something like that, because we're not a national title contender every year.
I think you make some valid points there, and that's the point that I think that I agree with you on is the contender part. You're right, and maybe from an Arkansas standpoint too. If this was happening to a lower level school right now, not only would they be, especially one that's struggling like Arkansas is or anybody else, not only would they be a laughing stock because they were cheating and still failing to win, but also, you're right. Right now, in the middle of the year, if a 3-6 team got caught in the midst of the scandal, they definitely would probably get hit pretty hard with some stuff. A coach would be fired. suspensions, bowl bans, whatever would be happening now. But you're right, because the team that's gotten caught is a legitimate national title contender and more than likely will make the college football playoff. That is what's holding them up in terms of passing down a punishment, if there will be one. And I think there will be one, but you're right. The fact that it hasn't happened yet is because Michigan's an elite contender. If they were, a mediocre team right now, I think it would have already happened. I do agree with that.
That's really all I got, man. I'm actually pulling up the Chick-fil-A, but I just wanted to call in, say hi to my favorite YouTuber, and I wish you all the best, man.
Well, Carter, we appreciate it, man. Thank you for calling in. And, go get that chicken.
Have a good night, man.
You too. Thank you. All right. That's a first-time caller. I like that. First time for everything, right? Chick-fil-A sounds really good, by the way. I haven't had that in months. But yeah, college football guy, I hope that answers your question. I think that is a major reason too. Again, it'd be laughable. It'd be hilarious if a bad team, 3-win, 4-win team got caught in this scandal. And it was like, dude, you had the plays, you were cheating, and you still were losing. Like, you clearly weren't doing it right. We're gonna put down this punishment now because it doesn't hurt anybody in any way, right? It doesn't hurt ratings. It doesn't hurt national title contention. And here's the thing too, for me, even just if I was a team on the outside looking in, if I'm Washington, Oregon, Texas, Bama, whoever it may be, and tomorrow I hear them say Michigan has been revoked, we're not even going to rank them in the playoff rankings because they can't play. So everybody else gets to just move up a spot. So Michigan's out. Congrats. Washington, you're now in the top 4. It's like, great. Happy to be here. But also it's like you feel like it's not as like you didn't earn it, right? Like I don't want to be benefiting from something like that. I don't want to win a national title. It's like when you hear all this stuff all the time, it's like, we had to vacate this win, so technically you won. Like, since I had to vacate my victory, my opponent technically beat me. No, I don't want that. I don't want that. Or hey, you're going to play this bowl game or this championship game, but like their starting quarterback, their starting running back, their starting wide receiver, and their top defensive player are all out with injuries, or they're all out for suspensions. It's like, great, I want to win the game, of course I do, but then you got to deal with but you only won because they were hurt. If this starting quarterback had played, we would, all that BS that fans do. That's what we do, right? That's what we resort to. So, it's a tough situation. Let it be known, obviously, but it's no, they will not get punished in the next 48 hours. Gideon, good to see you, my guy. I remember when I asked, you remember when you asked, which coach changed the narrative? There's only one answer: Mike freaking Gundy. Did I misread it, or were they supposed to be mediocre at preseason? You absolutely did not misread it. They were supposed to be mediocre at best preseason. You walk into this year, I mean, I didn't expect Oklahoma State to be where they are at. I thought the ceiling for them may have been 7 wins. 7 wins, 7-5, I thought would be a really good year for them. They're 7-2 and might make the Big 12 championship game. I definitely did not have Oklahoma State in the running for a Big 12 title by season's end. Yet here we are, 3 weeks out from the end of the regular season, and they're at the top of the standings with Texas. You look at the roster, man. They lost so much. Spencer Sanders surprisingly transfers out. So you're like, great, who's going to be their quarterback? Bowman's been playing great, but at the time we didn't know that. We didn't even know if he would be the guy. The running game was like, yeah, they're going to have to rely on that. Can they do that all year long? Probably not. The defense, a lot of question marks there. Like it was just the roster makeup was so bad. And again, you go back 2 months when they got annihilated by South Alabama. We all probably went, yep, well, you're right. Mediocre at best. It's going to be a long year for Oklahoma State. And it's funny. I love Mike Gundy, man. I love his passion. I love his energy. I love everything about Mike freaking Gundy, as you say. And, it's like when he lost to South Alabama, an embarrassment at home, like something clicked. And I've even talked to a lot of Oklahoma State fans lately, and they said that too. They said, the first couple of weeks of the year, it just felt like Gundy didn't have that same fire that we have seen in recent years. That fire wasn't there under Mike Gundy. And when they lost to South Alabama, it was like something switch. It was like a click. It was like, this is unacceptable. I am not going to stand for this. A change has to be made now if we want to somewhat salvage this season. And he did. He did. Were they lost like once since then, since that South Alabama game? Or not at all? I can't remember. But Regardless, they are on a tear. UCF coming up on Saturday. That's a trap game, right? Be mindful if you are Oklahoma State. If you are Oklahoma State, be mindful because you're going to the bounce house. And I don't come at me and say it's not the bounce house anymore. It's always going to be the bounce house, right? Just like, out in Los Angeles, it's always going to be the Staples Center. You can change the name all you want. It's going to be that for me. All right. So we're going to leave it at that. But you're going to the bounce house to take on UCF, a dangerous offense, riding the emotional high of taking down Oklahoma in the last bedlam, maybe ever. Got a lot on the line here. And if you lose to Oklahoma, or if you lose to UCF, that opens the door from someone behind you to come in and take your spot in the Big 12 championship game. But the Cowboys are not college football playoff contenders. They're not going to make the Final Four, and that's unfortunate. But a New Year's Six bowl game, that is not out of the question. The opportunity to win a Big 12 championship, not out of the question. The opportunity to spoil someone else's Big 12 title hope, such as Texas, is not out of the question. Talk about chaos on Championship Saturday, guys. This will be one of the best championship weekends we have seen in a long, long time because the majority of the Power 5 conference championships will have major playoff implications. Whatever happens in the SEC, more than likely it's going to be Alabama, Georgia, major playoff implications. Alabama wins, they get in. Does Georgia get in, even if they lose? That's huge there. The Big 12 could have implications. Texas, if they're still a one-loss team, they might need to take down Oklahoma State. They win, they're in. They lose, they're out. That eliminates a team. The Pac-12 is going to be phenomenal. Friday night, Pac-12 championship on December 1st. If it's Oregon and Washington, that's a playoff play-in game, assuming both teams are about where they are right now, right? Washington, I think, can afford to lose one game, whether it's to Utah or Oregon State. I think they can lose one of those. As long as they beat Oregon again, I think they get in. I think a one-loss or undefeated Pac-12 champion, undefeated would be Washington. I think a one-loss or undefeated champion gets in. I really do. The conference has been so good and so deep this year, I think it'd be hard to keep them out. So Pac-12 championship is going to play a big role. The Big Ten championship isn't going to be a good game by any means because whoever comes out of the West is just going to get annihilated, whether it's Iowa, who apparently is ranked now, Wisconsin, Nebraska still in the mix. I mean, the West is in just a crazy state right now. Whoever comes out of that is going to get blown out by Penn State, Ohio State, or Michigan. Whoever wins the East Division, more than likely it's going to be Michigan. So you put Michigan in there. I think that's actually the one conference that really isn't going to have any drama unless Penn State wins this Saturday. If Penn State beats Michigan this Saturday, and then Michigan goes on to beat Ohio State, that changes everything. Right? That's a three-way tie for first in the Big Ten East. You've got to work through those tiebreakers to figure out who goes to the championship game. And then you could still have the argument of, okay, and that's the thing too, right? So, I mean, how unfortunate would it be, man, to be like, let's say Penn State does it. Let's say Penn State beats Michigan, who beats Ohio State. And then you work, I don't know what the tiebreakers are, but let's say still Michigan wins, right? Let's say Michigan wins that tiebreaking scenario. I don't know what they are off the top of my head when you have a three-way tie like that. But Michigan goes. They win over Iowa, playoff bound. Michigan's in. You could make the case for Ohio State and Penn State, but how frustrating would it be if you're Penn State and you're like, we beat Michigan. We're 11-1, and we're not going to the playoff as another Big Ten team because Ohio State would get in over them because Ohio State beat Penn State head-to-head. That would suck. That's unfortunate, man. That's tough. So, again, I think the Big Ten is pretty cut and dry. Whoever wins the East is going to the playoff. The question is, will there be chaos when it comes to who wins the East? We'll know by 2 o'clock Central Time on Saturday afternoon, whether Penn State beats Michigan or not. That's all we'll need to know. So that'll be fun. Pac-12, Big Ten, Big 12, SEC. The only way the ACC gets interesting is if Louisville wins out, Florida State wins out. And that's the one thing I'm actually interested to see, right? Genuinely. As an advocate for chaos, I'm really interested to see in the next couple of weeks, knowing that we have a handful of top 10 matchups left to be played, such as 2 this weekend. Michigan, Ohio State will be one. You've got a handful down the road. Tennessee can slip in there. Who knows? If Louisville wins out and is 11-1, and is sitting at 8th. Let's say the Cardinals are 8th in the country, and they beat Florida State in the ACC championship game. Could you make the argument that Louisville gets in as the 4 seed, jumping 4 spots? That's what I want to know, especially with as bad of a loss they have with the loss to Pittsburgh, who's not good at all. That's what I'd love to know. That's a really interesting scenario that could actually happen. I don't think anything will come of that because I don't think Louisville has a strong enough strength of schedule, and I don't see how, like, if it's like a 1-loss Louisville, a 1-loss Oregon, and a 1-loss Texas, Louisville's at the bottom of those rankings, right? Or it would be Oregon, Texas, Louisville when it comes to choosing between those 3 teams, which is unfortunate, man. You look back, if Louisville somehow does finish 12-1 with the ACC title, they're going to have to look back on that Pittsburgh game and go, man, we blew it. We blew it. If we had just beaten Pitt, we'd be in the playoff. But I'm curious how it plays out. And again, if we see a whole lot of chaos, maybe they're not 8. Maybe they're like 6. If you're 6 and you beat Florida State, you're in my opinion. You should jump 2 spots to get in. So I don't know. It's going to be really, really fun, guys. We've got 3 weekends of the regular season left in championship weekend. Does anyone here understand the fact that we are, what are we now? 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday? Yeah, less than 4 weeks away. 4 weeks was yesterday or 2 days ago. So we are like 26 days away from finding out who's in the playoff, and then we start bowl predictions, and we start, it's good. And not to mention, it's the last year of the 4-team playoff. Thank God for that. Because I am so tired of this 4-team format. And this year, more than anything, right? We have so many good teams that are going to get left out because of the 4-team playoff. You're going to have to leave out maybe Oregon or Washington. You're going to have to leave out, maybe Alabama. Leave out maybe Texas. There's so many teams out there that in the 12-team format would find a way to get in. Penn State, maybe one of them. But in a 4-team format, doesn't take a chance. I hate it. So wrong. So wrong on so many levels. But that's why next year is going to be great. We have expansion, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but we're going to have it. We're going to have an expanded playoff, 12 teams. It's going to be a good time. I'm excited. I am excited for that. All right, let's see. Jerry says Dino Babers needs to be fired. You're probably right, Jerry. I think you're right. He's not going to be the guy to get you to that next level as much as you want him to, right? And I thought y'all might not be in for a big year, but I thought you might be in for a decent year after the strong start you had. And then Syracuse is just falling apart, man. They just collapsed, and I hate it. I hate that for them. Even if he pulls a rabbit out of his hat and gets them to a bowl game, if you're Syracuse and you're a fan, you got to be like, how much longer are we going to settle for 6-6, 7-5? Like, how much longer are we going to say that's a good year? Yay. I don't think any of us expect Syracuse to be ACC title contenders in football, basketball maybe, but not in football. But continuously dealing with mediocrity and losing seasons and just barely getting to bowl games, that gets old after a while, especially with a coach that's been there for, God, how long has he been there, Jerry? He's been there for like 2015, right? It's been close to like 10 years for Dino Babers. It's insane. Like he's definitely gotten a lot longer with the Orange than I thought he would. Like he's been around a lot longer than I thought he would. And last year bought him more time. Like if Syracuse had failed to go bowling last year, he would have been gone then. This year, especially with the talent that returned for Syracuse, if he fails to go bowling this year, he's definitely gone. And I think even if he does get to 6-6, I think they could fire him before the bowl game. Bowl games, as people say, mean nothing, and just could, move on. So I'm not disagreeing with you there at all, Jerry. We got my Syracuse helmet in the background, courtesy of you. I support them proudly. I represent them proudly, and I do hate to see them struggling as much as they are. They definitely need a change in leadership. A new just fresh breath of fresh air, new energy, new life in the building, which really hasn't been there for a while. College football guy, do I think Texas will get another loss for the Big 12 championship? Do I think Washington will lose a game as well? I think Washington's more likely to lose than Texas right now. Texas, who they got left? Like TCU, Iowa State, Texas Tech. Iowa State will be the toughest game on their schedule in the last 3 weeks. I think they'll find a way to win that game, especially if Quinn Ewers is back. That's the biggest holdup for Texas right now, right? Quinn Ewers, when will he return? Malik Murphy's holding down the fort. They're getting by, crushed BYU, escaped Kansas State. Should have been a loss, but they escaped it. Win's a win. I think TCU and Iowa State both are trap games. I would be more inclined to say if they're going to lose one of those, it would be to Iowa State. I don't think Texas loses one of those, though. I think they find a way to survive. Washington, on the other hand, tough game coming up against Utah. Washington's defense isn't good. Utah's offense isn't good. But like we saw Utah do against USC, they can exploit a bad defense. And so I think Utah is going to put more points on Washington on Saturday night than we think. But I still think Washington wins. If Washington's losing a game, it will come to Oregon State and Corvallis next weekend. That is a trap game if I've ever seen one. I actually predicted Oregon State to win that game back in the preseason. Maybe we change our views. Maybe we don't. But I think if they're going to lose a game, it's coming next weekend in Corvallis. And that means that if you have two 11-1 teams in the Pac-12 championship, it's a play-in game no matter what. It's Oregon, Washington, assuming Oregon gets there. Oregon to slip up to USC or Oregon State themselves. They get or Arizona State. Oregon has struggled in the desert before. Kenny Dillingham, former Oregon offensive coordinator, now the head coach of Arizona State. They'll be facing off next Saturday, so that's something to watch out for as well. But no, I think Washington more likely to lose a game than Texas, and I hope. Like bottom line is, I don't care if Washington loses a game, wins out, whatever. I just want, as a fan of college football, and really not really a fan of either team. Not that I hate either, just I don't have any loyalty to Washington or Oregon. I hope that the Pac-12 championship is the play-in game. I hope it is as good as the first meeting between the two back in October, and I hope that the winner of Washington-Oregon, we all know walking into that game, the winner goes to the playoff. I want that. I want that high of a stake. I want that rivalry renewed. It's already a heck of a rivalry, but I want the rematch. I want the fight and the passion and the stakes and everything. That's what I want. I just want some chaos, man, and that would be epic. So I hope Oregon doesn't lose again, because if they do, they're out, right? There's no playoff hopes for them. So I hope they win out up until the Pac-12 championship. Washington can slip up, and I think we'll have a close fight in the Pac-12 title game. So that's what I'm rooting for. But no, Washington more likely than Texas, long story short. Mr. Glassman, good to see you. What do I think about the Grinch being fired? It's about time. All I can really say on that, right? It's about time. I mean, the fact that man has been employed as a defensive coordinator at the FBS level for this long is a crime. I think that, honestly, it is an absolute crime that Alex Grinch has been a defensive coordinator at a high level, Oklahoma and USC, for as long as he has. And you know what? That is the problem with some coaches just remaining very loyal to their people, right? A lot of coaches bring in guys that are their friends or they've worked with for so long or this and that. And then when the going gets tough, it's like, ooh, put you in an awkward spot, right? It's like, I don't want to fire my friend. I don't want to be on bad terms with my friend or my relative like I was doing with Kirk and Brian Ferentz. That's awkward. It's like, don't date within the workplace, right? Because when you inevitably break up, it's awkward. And so now you've got your best friend coaching with you. And if you're the head coach and your best friend's sucking, you've got to go to him and be like, hey, you're fired, dude. Like, I hope we can stay friends, like a breakup. Like, hey, it's not you, it's me. We can still stay friends, though. And you're like, no. So it's a bad spot. But it's about time. He was horrible at Oklahoma. He was god-awful at USC. If USC had even had a lick of a 25% increase in defense, they probably would have made the playoff last year. And probably would not be out of contention this year. So it was about time. I'm curious to see if you're Oregon, be mindful of that. USC has nothing to play for. Yes, that's correct. They have nothing to play for other than spoiler. And now you're going to go on the road to Eugene. The offense is still great. If the defense finds new life and starts playing a little bit harder or better, now they're going to be under a new leadership. Maybe that poses problems for Oregon. We've seen crazier things happen. So I would not rule that out, but I still like select Oregon a lot in that game. But yeah, my thoughts on it is it should have happened probably like 5 years ago. I think USC fans and Oklahoma fans alike would agree with that. Scotty B sitting out some potential coaching hires for Baylor. Says Jeff Traylor, GJ Kinney, however you want to pronounce it, Willie Fritz from Tulane. All would be good. Traylor would be a good hire. I think Traylor would be. It's probably the best out of those. Traylor or I'm gonna say I think it's Kine. I think would be good. Both residing in Texas. Traylor at UTSA, Kine at Texas State. Traylor a little bit more FBS coaching experience. Is a heck of a recruiter. I mean, he's a really, really good recruiter, and that's kind of what I'd go for there. It's you want Traylor, who's your traditional recruiter. Do you want Kine, who's your better in the transfer portal? And maybe you go with Kine, great offensive mind, utilize the transfer portal well. Willie Fritz has done well at Tulane. I would be more nervous about him being there, not like being a Power 5 coach at a program that expects to win consistently. Tulane was one of those programs that, keep in mind, prior to last year's breakout year when they won the Cotton Bowl, they were happy with 7-5, right? They were a team that had been mediocre or well below average for so long. And so when Willie Fritz was getting them to 7-5 or 8 wins, it was like they won the Super Bowl. Last year was huge. Keep in mind, last year, 12-2, the year before, 2-10. So the biggest turnarounds ever in college football. The thing with coaches is you've got to go to a place where you know the expectation, right? Every program wants to win. Of course they do. Of course they want to win, right? But how much? Are you going to a program that expects conference and national titles? Or are you going to a program that's like, hey, look, if you can get that there for us, awesome. But, man, we'd just be thrilled with a couple of winning seasons and a decent bowl berth. You can do that consistently, we're good. That's what you've got to figure out. Baylor, I think, has had that taste of success. They know they can be in contention like they were with Matt Rule, like they were with Dave Aranda a few years ago, like they were with Art Briles back in the golden days. Baylor should be succeeding, right? They've shown that they can succeed. So Baylor's not going to be a program that's cool 7-8 wins consistently. They deserve and expect to be contending for national titles and for playoff berths and for Big 12 titles. That's what they want. And I don't think Willie Fritz can do that. He's a great coach. He's a good guy. He's going to be a great coach at the lower level. Some guys aren't cut out for the big leagues. Some guys aren't cut out to be head coaches. You know, we see guys that go from offensive coordinators to head coaches and they fail. Some guys aren't cut out for it. I don't think Willie Fritz is. But Traylor, he would be. He would be. Wrapping things up here, guys. A little bit slow tonight. No, we're not getting a whole lot of engagement, which is all right. It's all good. We came and did what we wanted to do, and that was to break down the playoff rankings, right? We wanted to break those down, share our initial thoughts, share our initial reactions. So let's really wrap things up here with this last question from my guy, Mr. Glassman. And he says, Urban Meyer to Michigan State. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. And here's why. First off, if it does happen, we just got to – Urban Meyer needs to shut up. And it sounds so insensitive of me. But if it does happen, he needs to shut up about his health issues and the stress and the this and the that and the other. Because how many times can you keep putting it off on that? If your health is that bad and you're that stressed and you're that this and that, then stop coaching, right? Because I'm going to take a break from Florida because, my heart. Okay, makes sense. Oh, now I'm going to come back and go to Ohio State, coach them for like 7 years. My heart, my stress. Now I'm going to go to the NFL and coach the Jags. Oh, I was abusing people and got caught get a little handsy at a bar in Cincinnati, so I'm out. He's not a good person by any means. No, he's not. He's a jerk. I agree with that. But he's a heck of a coach. And bottom line is what I've always told people is when it comes to my team, when it comes to any coach, I'm not hiring you to be my preacher. I'm not hiring you to be my morality guy. I'm not hiring you for your morals. I'm hiring you to win games. I don't want to hire a criminal. I don't want to hire someone that's a really, really, really bad person. But bottom line is, if you're doing everybody does bad stuff. If you do a couple bad things here and there, or maybe you're a little vulgar, maybe you're a little unorthodox, I don't care as long as you're winning games. Bottom line, I do not care as long as you're winning games. I know Michigan State would do the same thing. Here's the thing, though. Michigan State, we've got to see how this situation with Mel Tucker plays out. They signed him to a ridiculous extension after one good year. That's where programs fail, right? You have one good year flash in the pan. It's like, here, coach, here's a $100 million extension. It's like, you idiot. You are an absolute idiot. 1 year doesn't mean anything. You do that for 3-4 years in a row. Okay, here's your extension. But you don't give someone a max extension, a max contract, whatever, after one decent year. You just don't do it. But teams do it every single year. It's idiotic. So that I think what happened with Mel Tucker and the Tracy deal and the sexual assault or harassment, whatever the hell it was, I think that is legit to an extent. I think there's a lot more to that story that we don't know. And Michigan State, of course, is going to do everything in their power to not pay him the buyout. If they get their wish through the legal process, if they find a way to not pay Mel Tucker the buyout, they can afford Urban Meyer and name their price. Come to us, come coach us. We'll give you anything you want. If they have to pay the buyout, I do not see in any way how Michigan State can land Urban Meyer. No way. From a financial standpoint, how can you go from paying one of the largest buyouts ever to Mel Tucker, a crap ton of money that you're going to be paying on him forever, and then hiring Urban Meyer to come rebuild your program too? I also don't think Urban Meyer would do it. On top of all that, why would he do it? I mean, he was a god in Ohio State, a god in Columbus. It was so good with them. And then all of a sudden now you're gonna go from Ohio State to Michigan State and have to rebuild. Ohio State never had to go through a rebuild, right? Like he didn't have to, right? Ohio State is it's a 5-star program, bringing in 5-star talent regardless of who the coach is. Michigan State is a dumpster fire. I don't think he'd want to do that. I don't think he'd want to have to go through and rebuild that. I think there's maybe also a sense of loyalty. I'm going to go from Ohio State to Michigan State. It's not Michigan. It's not a big of a rival, but still an interdivision rivalry there. I don't think he'd do it. I don't think Urban Meyer's done coaching. I don't think he's done coaching. He's staying around. But I don't think he goes to Michigan State for those reasons. They can't afford him. They've got to wait this thing out and see how the Mel Tucker situation finally ends. And then also, there has to be mutual interest. He keeps shooting them down. He keeps saying no. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that pans out. So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. Good question, though. I've seen those speculations, those reports swirling around. And it's definitely something that I'm keeping my eye on. Because I do think Urban Meyer will come back out of the ashes and leave the TV gig for the sidelines for 2-3 years. Honestly, if it was my team, I would take 2 or 3 years with Urban Meyer. If that meant some really, really good seasons, maybe a championship, I would take that to go back into a rebuilding period. Like, you see those hypotheticals all the time. It's like, would you take a national championship or a Super Bowl right now if it meant that for like the next 5 years, your team was going to be garbage? Yeah, I would. I would take that. I would take that emotional high and that joy and that thrill of winning a title if it meant that for the next couple of years, I wouldn't even sniff one. 100% I would. Urban Meyer's going to do that for a program. We just don't know which one yet. And last thing, too, before we close tonight, I saw someone say, Michigan State hasn't been relevant. What college football have you been watching where Michigan State's never been relevant? Maybe in the grand scheme of things, sure, but in the last 10, 15 years, yeah, they have. Mark D'Antonio had that team as a contender every single year. Got them to the college football playoff in 2015? College football playoff then. Won the Cotton Bowl over Baylor in a wild game. I believe that was back in 2014. Won the Big Ten championship the year they went to the playoff. A low-scoring game against Iowa. Absolutely phenomenal game there. Had them in solid bowl games. Had them as a perennial top 25 contender. Had them feared in the Big Ten. They were relevant there. Even the second year under Mel Tucker, that program was at one point in the Big Ten, in the college football playoff hunt. That weird, I think that was a COVID year, was it not? Had them in contention there, was playing, or 2021, I think it was, had them playing really good ball, and then ended up winning the Peach Bowl over Pittsburgh, a New Year's Six bowl win. That was 2 years ago. So to say that they've never been relevant, to say that they haven't been, decent at any means is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And with that, guys, I know we're getting a caller, whoever it may be. We will take your call next weekend. Or next Tuesday. We will take your call then. I know we had said we were going to wrap things up now. I think we're going to do. We will take your call next Tuesday night with our rankings live stream. Now, friendly reminder to those of you that are still here. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure next Tuesday is the big basketball showcase. It's going to be the State Farm Champions Classic, the traditional Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, 4 teams that play, So bear with us. The times are going to vary, right? It's been 6 o'clock tonight, 6 o'clock last week. Well, next week, we're going to have to wait, I think, until after the first basketball game, after the first game, which I think starts at 5 or 6. We're going to have to wait for the first one to end. And then in between games, we'll have the playoff ranking show. We'll be here for that. And then they'll do the second game. So a lot of things to just stay tuned. All the more reason to subscribe. All the more reason to hit that notification button so you don't miss out on our live stream next Tuesday. So you know exactly when we go live. Because next week it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a wild night with you never know with basketball. I think the game's about to end and there's 20 extra minutes left. So stay tuned. We'll probably take if we start early, we'll take some calls during that time and then do the rankings show and reaction and get right back into calls. Who knows what we'll do? But that's our plan. That's our plan. So thank you all for being here tonight. College football guy Jerry Turner, my man Scotty B. Going to be at the Baylor-Utah women's game next week. That's going to be a fun one. That'll be fun. Baylor's got a big game tonight, Scotty. Yes, Auburn, ESPN, 8 o'clock. So about 45 minutes. Going to be a big night. Scotty B, we appreciate you. Stephen Cuffey, thank you for being here, my guy. College football guy, as we mentioned. C. Glassman, our man Robert, our man Jerry Turner, Frankie Russell. Who else was Clement Akufo? We appreciate you. Righteous Pimp, Eugene Morris IV. Our man Mitch, Jason Ridley. Everybody else, my man Gideon. How could I forget? Gideon, thanks for being here. Our lone caller tonight, Carter. We appreciate you. First-time caller. Hopefully we'll have him back later on this year. But with that, guys, we'll conclude tonight's live stream. Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for the support. Predictions for the top games this week start on the channel tomorrow. Of course, we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert. Have a great night, everybody.